Imagine waking up to find your neighbors suddenly fainting, screaming, or dancing in the streets, and nobody knows why. Entire towns gripped by fear, yet there's no disease, no poison, no enemy. Just something strange spreading through the people. From the mysterious dancing plagues of Europe to outbreaks of uncontrollable laughter in Africa, history is full of bizarre events that left communities terrified. Today, we're exploring the most shocking mass panics, real stories so strange they seem almost impossible. You won't believe some of these actually happened. Vanishing privates. In a quiet village somewhere in Southeast Asia, a strange and terrifying panic once gripped the men, a fear so intense it's hard to imagine today. This wasn't a fear of ghosts, illness, or natural disasters. No, this fear was much more personal and bizarre. Men began showing up at clinics, shaking, sweating, and crying, convinced that their genitals were shrinking, disappearing, or being pulled back into their bodies. They believed it was literally vanishing. Some tied strings around themselves to keep it in place. Some ran to relatives or friends for help. A few even begged strangers to hold them, just to make sure nothing was lost forever. Doctors were baffled. They tried to reassure the men, telling them it was psychological. They gave it a name, Koro Syndrome, a rare disorder. But to the people suffering, it wasn't all in their heads. One man burst into a clinic screaming, "It's gone! It's gone!" only for the nurses to discover everything perfectly normal. And it wasn't just one person. Soon, entire communities were caught up in the panic. Villages reported multiple cases at once. People whispered about dark forces, witchcraft, or curses that could steal manhood in the night. Families stayed up at night guarding their loved ones. Fear spread faster than anyone could stop it. Even today, Koro Syndrome still appears sporadically across parts of Asia and Africa. Science calls it a culture-bound syndrome, a condition triggered by intense fear and social influence. But for those experiencing it, it doesn't matter what science says. The terror is real, and the goal is simple: to keep everything where it belongs. What triggers it? Mass hysteria, ancient folklore, or some unseen force in the night? No one truly knows. One thing is certain: for the men caught in the grip of Koro, reality becomes a nightmare of fear, obsession, and desperation. So, maybe tonight, just check your drawstrings before bed. You never know. The Dancing Plague of 1518. In the summer of 1518, the streets of Strasbourg, a town in what is now France, became the stage for one of history's strangest events. It started with a single woman who began dancing uncontrollably in the middle of the street. Day after day, she kept moving, unable to stop. Soon, others joined her. Within a week, dozens of people were dancing non-stop. Within a month, the number had grown to hundreds. They didn't dance for fun. They were trapped in a terrifying compulsion. Exhausted, dehydrated, and in extreme pain, some of the dancers collapsed. Some even died from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. Doctors of the time were baffled. Some suggested it was caused by hot blood or an imbalance of the humors. Others thought it might be a curse or divine punishment. Today, historians and scientists often call it a mass psychogenic illness, a mysterious event where stress, fear, and social influence can push people into extreme, uncontrollable behavior. The cause? No one knows for sure. Was it stress from famine and disease? A form of collective madness? Or something darker, some force that swept through the town like a contagion of movement and panic? Whatever it was, the dancing plague remains one of history's most baffling and chilling mysteries. If you're already feeling uneasy, just wait. The next stories get even stranger. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the rest of these truly bizarre cases that will make you question what's real and what's not. Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic. In 1962, a strange and uncontrollable laughter began to sweep through a small village in Tanzania. It started with just a few schoolchildren, but the laughter didn't stop. Hours turned into days, and soon dozens of children were laughing non-stop. The laughter wasn't joyful or playful. It was exhausting, uncontrollable, and often left the children in tears or gasping for air. Teachers tried to maintain order, but the outbreak spread faster than anyone could contain. Before long, entire schools had to close, and the laughter began jumping from one village to another. Communities were thrown into chaos. Families were exhausted, local officials were baffled, and no medicine or treatment could stop it. Doctors at the time had no explanation for why hundreds of people seemed to be overtaken by laughter as if it had a life of its own. The epidemic lasted for months, affecting thousands. People experienced real physical symptoms, crying, fainting, and fatigue. But there was no virus, no poison, nothing tangible causing it. Whatever it was, it seemed to move through people like a contagion of its own, a strange force that made entire communities lose control. Even today, the Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic remains one of the most bizarre and mysterious events of the 20th century, a reminder that fear, stress, or something deeper can ripple through people in ways that defy logic. Yemen, walking illness. In the 2010s, a strange and unsettling phenomenon began appearing in remote villages in Yemen. People started walking in a trance-like state, moving slowly and oddly through the streets as if guided by some invisible force. They didn't respond to calls, didn't answer questions, and sometimes muttered strange words that made no sense to anyone around them. Villagers watched in fear as some of the affected collapsed, exhausted and disoriented. There was no virus, no poison, and no obvious explanation. Yet the behavior spread from person to person, moving quietly through the villages like a creeping shadow. Families were terrified, unsure if it was sickness, a curse, or something far stranger. Experts later suggested it was a case of mass psychogenic illness triggered by extreme stress, anxiety, and ongoing tribal tensions. But for those experiencing it, the fear and confusion were real, and the trance-like wandering seemed as unstoppable as the desert wind. Even now, the Yemen walking illness remains one of the more mysterious modern cases of collective panic, a haunting reminder of how the human mind and body can react in ways that defy understanding. Ketere National Secondary School screaming panic. In August 2019, something strange and terrifying erupted in a school in Kelantan, Malaysia. Suddenly, a group of schoolgirls began screaming uncontrollably, claiming they could see an evil face lurking around them. Panic spread quickly. One girl's scream would trigger another, until dozens were caught up in the chaos. Teachers and staff struggled to calm them, but fear had taken on a life of its own. Students refused to return to classrooms, and the school was thrown into confusion and distress. Doctors and authorities investigated, but there was no physical cause, no hallucination-causing chemical, no illness, no real threat. Experts later suggested it was a collective anxiety response, spreading from student to student like a contagion of fear. For those experiencing it, the terror was real. The feeling of an unseen presence, the screams, the frantic fear, it gripped them completely. Even though no one could explain it, the incident left a lasting mark on the community, a chilling reminder of how fear can sweep through people faster than reason. Rift of shooting threat hoaxes. In 2023, a wave of fear swept across schools in Brazil, igniting panic that spread faster than anyone could control. It all began after a real attack in Blumenau, a horrifying event that left communities shaken. But soon, reports of additional threats began to pour in, alerts that sounded real, urgent, and terrifying, yet most of them were completely false. Students didn't know what to believe. Some hid under desks, others ran from classrooms, and many called their parents in frantic confusion. Teachers and school staff scrambled to manage the chaos, while administrators struggled to verify which threats were real and which were hoaxes. Social media only made things worse. Every message, every forwarded warning, every viral post sent a ripple of fear to schools hundreds of miles away. Panic spread from city to city, fueled not by bullets or bombs, but by rumors, images, and the sheer power of collective anxiety. Schools were closed, parents rushed to collect their children, and entire neighborhoods were consumed by a tense, nerve-wracking fear. Even though most of the threats were later proven to be false, the panic was very real. Thousands of students and families lived through hours of fear, heart-pounding uncertainty, and confusion. In the end, the 2023 Brazilian school shooting hoaxes revealed a chilling truth about the modern world. Fear can be contagious, and in today's connected society, a single rumor can paralyze entire communities. Jumping Frenchmen of Maine. In the late 19th century, deep in the forests of Maine, something strange was discovered among a group of French-Canadian lumberjacks. They weren't sick, they weren't possessed, but they had an unusual condition that baffled scientists: an extreme, uncontrollable startle reflex. If someone shouted at them, clapped, or touched them unexpectedly, their reactions were instant and bizarre. Some would jump high into the air, others would shout, flail their arms, or even obey commands immediately, no matter how strange or dangerous. If someone told them to pick up an object or perform an action, their body responded as if they had no control over it. Imagine losing control over your own body, obeying commands from strangers, and reacting with exaggerated, almost mechanical movements to the slightest sound. This rare neurological disorder became known as the Jumping Frenchmen of Maine, named after the region and people where it was first documented. To outsiders, it looked like a kind of contagion, spreading through stories and observation, but in reality, it was a real physiological condition. Scientists still study it today to understand the mysterious ways the human nervous system can react under extreme sensitivity. The Jumping Frenchman of Maine remains one of history's strangest examples of how the human body can behave in ways completely beyond conscious control. A real-life case where fear, surprise, and reflex combine in ways that seem almost unreal. Capgras delusion. Imagine looking at your spouse, your parent, or your best friend, someone you've known your whole life, and being convinced that they are not who they appear to be, that they are an imposter, a perfect copy of the person you love, but not real. This is the terrifying reality of Capgras delusion, a rare psychological disorder that makes people doubt the identities of those closest to them. Victims can experience intense fear, confusion, and paranoia. They may refuse to be near their loved ones, accuse them of being replaced, or even attempt to test them in desperate ways. The mind in Capgras delusion twists reality in ways that seem impossible to outsiders. What looks normal to everyone else becomes a world of uncertainty and suspicion. Everyday life, hugging a spouse, talking to a parent, greeting a friend, can feel like stepping into a hall of mirrors where familiar faces are suddenly untrustworthy. While rare, Capgras delusion has been documented in cases associated with brain injury, dementia, and other neurological conditions. But for those experiencing it, it's not about science or diagnosis. It's about a real heart-wrenching fear that someone they love has been replaced by a stranger. It's a chilling reminder of how fragile perception can be, and how the human mind can create a reality that feels more terrifying than any external threat. Alien hand syndrome. Imagine sitting at a table, reading or typing, when suddenly your own hand seems to have a mind of its own. It moves without your permission, grabbing objects, pressing buttons, or even striking out, and you can't stop it. This is the reality of alien hand syndrome, a rare neurological disorder that makes people feel as if one of their own limbs is completely separate from themselves. Victims describe it as watching a stranger control their body, often performing actions that can be awkward, destructive, or even dangerous. Some people have reported their hand undoing buttons, throwing objects, or pushing people around, all while they struggle in vain to regain control. The experience is deeply unsettling, turning the familiar act of moving your own body into something alien and frightening. Alien hand syndrome is usually caused by brain injury, surgery, or certain neurological conditions, but for those who live with it, the fear is real. Every movement becomes unpredictable. Every touch feels like a betrayal from your own body. It's a chilling glimpse into how fragile the sense of control can be, and how the human body can sometimes act as if it has a mind of its own. That's all for today. If these stories left you questioning reality, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because we'll be diving into even stranger and more unbelievable events next time. Stay curious and stay a little on edge.